Hello, my dear students and my dear friends and all the viewers who are following me. Today I'll be taking class on shock. I'm Dr. Santosh Patil, professor in general surgery and minimal invasive surgery. It's very important to know this topic shock, as most of the patient who have an injury or physical trauma to the body. For example, it can be in the form of a hemorrhage, or it can be in the form of a infection, will or any organ injury will lead to shock. So it is important to understand the basic pathophysiology that is happening in a patient who has shock. In this class, I will be dealing with the understanding of the pathophysiology of the shock, and also to know the severity of the shock, and there are different modalities that will help in assessing the shock. So by definition, shock is a state where there is an abnormal physiological state. The normal physiology of the body is hampered. So whenever there is a abnormal physiological state, it leads to disproportion. It is mainly because of the disproportion between the circulating blood volume and the size of the vascular bed. For example, if there is a hemorrhage or a lot of bleeding that is taking place because of the trauma or the road traffic accidents, or patient undergoing any surgery leading to bleeding, the circulatory volume that normally holds into the intravascular components is lost, and the body starts to go for a imbalance between these two. The volume is lost and the vascular bed that is there, even that size is reduced. So the body starts acting or present in the form of a shock. So what happens? That leads to circulatory failure and anoxia. So definitely whenever the oxygen or the bleeding takes place, or there is a septicemia where the bacterial overgrowth takes place, like in a septicemic shock, the circulatory failure happens, and this circulatory failure further leads to decreased oxygen carrying capacity to the distal most tissues, leading to anoxia. The end result is nothing but it's a collapse and progressive failure of the cardiovascular system. So what is exactly happening with the shock? There is certain things which we should understand. The pathophysiology is not a term which has to be described like it is general term as shock. The pathophysiology is always happening at different levels. Here I'll be dealing, for easy understanding, the pathophysiology that is taking place at the cellular level, the pathophysiology that is going on in the microvascular level, that is the blood supply that goes to the tissues, and to the systemic level, what are the systems that are involved, that body starts to start taking changes like in the form of a compensatory phenomena or a decompensatory phenomena that will be addressed. In cellular level, there are two things that are happening. The cell, which usually deals with depends purely on the aerobic metabolism, goes to the phase of anaerobic. So what happens whenever there is a tissue anoxia, the cell which is dependent on the aerobic metabolism suddenly has to shift to anaerobic metabolisms. Because of the reduced perfusion, cells are deprived of oxygen, which will lead to shift in anaerobic metabolism. That will lead to collection of lot of lactic acid in the cells, which will further lead to systemic metabolic acidosis. The first phase that is taking place at the cellular level is metabolic acidosis and lactic acid. The second thing that is happening at the cellular level, if left untreated, is the cell goes into breakdown. How? Because the glucose whichever was there, that gets utilized totally, and the cells are exhausted of the glucose, and the anaerobic respiration also ceases with further insult to the tissues. This leads to failure of the sodium and potassium pump in the cell membrane and intracellular organelles, which leads to release of the lysosomal enzymes, which cause autodegradation of the cells. This will lead to release of the interstellar contents, that is potassium, are released into the bloodstream. So cellular level, two things: lactic acidosis, or what we call as anaerobic metabolism. The second is lysis of the cells. Then coming to the microvascular, it's easily understandable, like it is the blood vessel or the endothelial damage that is taking place. How this endothelial damage happens? Whenever there is a tissue ischemia, the hypoxia and acidosis which are happening at the cellular level also takes place in the microvascular level, which starts a cascading process. This cascading process is nothing but by activation of the complement in the prime neutrophils. These complement in the neutrophils start releasing a lot of free radicals, that cytokines, which starts injuring the endothelial. This capillary injury to the capillary endothelium leads to extravasation of fluid from the intravascular to the extravascular component, mainly because of the endothelial damage related leakage, which lead to tissue edema and further exacerbating, because there will be further congestion that leads to further exacerbation of the cellular hypoxia. That is happening at the microvascular level. In detail, again I'll be dealing in septic shock, which is classically a local factor that is affecting the septic shock. This is a general description. Then at the systemic level, different organ respond to shock in a different pattern. The cardiovascular system, the response is whenever there's a shock, like a lot of blood, patient loses a lot of blood, suddenly what happens, the preload, the blood that is supposed to go to the heart and the blood that heart has to pump out, both are decreased, because the body is still in a phase of compensation. During that compensatory phenomena, the baroreceptors which are present in the larger blood vessels are activated, or stretch receptors are activated, resulting in the increased sympathetic activity. This sympathetic activity in turn increases the tachycardia or increases the contractility of the heart, so that all the tissues are trying to meet the adequate oxygen demand. This is a compensation phenomena that is happening in the cardiovascular system. Then further lead to release of the catecholamines into the circulation, which leads to tachycardia and systemic vasoconstriction. In the systemic level, the respiratory system also definitely gets involved, which will be in the form of a metabolic acidosis that is happening at the cellular level with increased sympathetic activity. So patient starts having increased respiratory rate and increased minute ventilation. This is mainly to vent out the lot of CO2 which is accumulated because of the metabolic acidosis that leads to excretion of the CO2. This is nothing but a compensatory phenomena leading to compensatory metabolic acidosis. In the systemic level, the kidneys definitely have to play a role, because whenever there is a lot of fluid loss that is happening in the body, the kidneys are the one system that prevents excessive excretion of the fluid from the body. This is mainly because of the by the decreased perfusion to the kidneys, which further reduces the filtration at the glomerular level and decreases the urine output. This mechanism is mainly by the activation of the renin-angiotensin aldosterone stimulation. Further, this leads to vasoconstriction and sodium and water retention into the kidneys. Then the cardiovascular, the respiratory, the renal, and last the endocrine system has to be activated. This is mainly because of the decreased preload. What happens is the vasopressin, which is antidiuretic hormone, is released from the hypothalamus, which will lead to vasoconstriction and absorption of water in the collecting system. So other hormones also, like cortisols, are released from the adrenal cortex, which helps in sodium and water resorption, and also sensitization of the cells to the catecholamines. So there are certain pathways that are leading to the shock. So this is a chart which briefly describe. On the left side, there is mainly disruption of the host cell and the equilibrium. On the right side, it is nothing but host cell and microwave is nothing but a septic shock pathophysiology, which will be discussed. And on the right side, there is a trauma. Trauma can lead to hypovolemia. Trauma related shock is separate entity which has to be described, because in trauma related entity, it is not only the blood that is lost, patient is not only in hypovolemia, but associated tissue injury or the tissue components which are broken down are in the form of damage associated molecular patterns, which are the new terms that has come into the recent advances of pathophysiology of shock, also are taken up by the toll-like receptors. These receptors are nothing but a recognition patterns of the antigens or the broken tissues, which stimulates the cascade or cellular activation to prevent further damage that is happening at the organ level. So what happens, the heart goes into acute failure, further leading to decreased tissue perfusion, and cellular hypoxia, further leading to shock. Definitely, if you consider all these things, if there is a compensatory phenomena happening and a person has been resuscitated well, the person recovers. If during the compensatory phenomena, if the person does not get any resuscitation, the body starts giving up, which leads to a vicious cycle, which leads to a reperfusion related injury. this reperfusion related injury is a very very important topic that has to be understood, because this is happening exactly between the compensatory and the decompensatory phase of the shock. Whenever there is a tissue anoxia and local inflammation, the body secretes a lot of acid and potassium that leads to myocardial depression and vascular dilatation, which will leads to release activation of the humoral and the cellular mechanism. This leads to endothelial injury and organ injury to the lungs and the kidneys. So every system which has already, all the systems have activated the humoral and cellular mechanism. If left untreated, they start releasing the free radical, and further they start damaging their own system, which may be in the form of acute lung injury, acute renal injury, or a multi-organ failure. Multi-organ failure is nothing but, by definition, when two or more systems are involved or hampered. So that we term it as a vicious cycle of death. There is a compensation, left untreated will go into decompensation, and further patient will be going into a cycle of shock. So we have to assess what are the severity of the shock, how the shock may present. If it is a mild bleeding, for example in a hemorrhage, it may be a mild related shock where the symptoms are very limited. Initially there may be tachycardia or tachypnea with mild reduction in output, where patient have mild anxiety. Or it can be blood pressure is maintained during the mild shock, because the bleed is not so much, the compensatory mechanism is activated, which is adequate to maintain the minimal blood loss. The peripheries are usually cold and sweaty with prolonged capillary refill time. Then there is a moderate shock, where the shock progresses and the renal perfusion starts failing, means the systems come into the action to compensation. Further, tachycardia and blood pressure starts to fall. The cardiac response, which was in activation, starts giving up, and patient becomes a little drowsy and mildly confused. Then there is last period of the shock, where enter decompensation phase, where there is no response from or treatment being given to the patient. He will go into profound tachycardia and hypotension. Further, anuria ensures, and patient becomes unconscious with labored breathing. So depending upon the cause, we have to classify what are the different types of shock that will lead to hypovolemic shock. Definitely it's mainly because of the volume is lost. The volume is lost maybe because of lot of hemorrhage. Considering the surgical aspect, lot of hemorrhage or blood loss that is happening to the patient. It can be the road traffic accident related trauma, which will lead to blood loss, or it can be a surgery related injury where intraoperatively massive major bleeding happens, or postoperatively there may be bleeding. These are cardiogenic shock is purely a medical shock, what we can call as, where the patient has myocardial infarction is the example, where the patient cardiac response is directly hampered. Obstructive shock is a condition whenever there is a block to the outflow of the cardiac. For example, pericardial tamponade or tension pneumothorax is the best example, where the cardiac is put under high pressure. And distributive shock, also called as the septic shock, is one that will be addressed again. So what are the consequences? If the shock is left untreated, patient will go into unresistible shock, where initially compensation phenomena is there, all the systems come into the action. Left untreated will go into cell death and inability to body to compensation is lost, myocardial depression and loss of consciousness, and peripheries no longer respond appropriately with vasopressor agent. And left untreated, patient will definitely go into the multi-organ failure, where two or more organ systems are involved. It is mainly because of the prolonged ischemia and reperfusion related injury. Injury can be of anything. It can be respiratory, cardiac, or coagulopathy. In the end stage is coagulopathy. If a patient goes into the stage of multi-organ failure, it is very very important to know the percentage of mortality is 60% in the present day. It's a very bad sign. So there are certain metabolic factors or the cardiac factors that is taking place in individual level of the shock. This is a brief chart that's going to tell you. In hypovolemia, you can see the patient has a output is low, because initially the compensatory phenomena is not activated and the patient loses a lot of blood. Definitely the patient is into severe low cardiac output. The vascular resistance is high, where the body is trying to restore the prevent further bleeding by vasoconstriction that is taking place. And the venous pressure, that is the central venous pressure, is totally low. Mixed venous saturation is again low. Mixed venous saturation is nothing but a saturation level, percentage of saturation that is returning to the heart from the body, that is oxygen delivery and tissue extraction from the tissues. This mixed central saturation is purely measured by the ABG, that is placed as the central line. Normally the mix saturation is somewhere around 50 to 70%. If this mix saturation is less than 50%, that indicates it is mainly because of the inadequate oxygen delivery and increased extraction by the cells. In contrast, you can see the only changes of mix saturation is happening in the distributive shock, that is also called as a septicemic shock, where the mix saturation is more than 70%. This is mainly because there is distortion that is taking place at the cellular level or the microvascular level, where the cells are denied or inability of the microvascular thing to supply the oxygen to the cellular level. It is mainly because of the maximum endothelial damage that is taking place at the microvascular level, and also because other reason being the AV shunting of the atriovenous shunting of the blood that is taking place in the septic shock. And the base deficit are high in almost all conditions. This base deficit is nothing but it is the degree of lactic acidosis. It is a degree of lactic acidosis which is measured again by the serum lactate levels. Normal serum lactate levels are less than 6 millimoles. If this base deficit on measurement with ABG goes to more than 6 millimoles, it is associated with very high morbidity and mortality. So any patients who are being treated with the shock, the base deficit is very important parameter to diagnose as well as monitor the patient's response to the your treatment. So base deficit is grossly elevated in any form of shock. So there are certain monitoring which has to be done to the patients. These monitoring are the minimum criteria or the minimum things that a patient should be dealt with. It can be for mild, moderate or severe. These are the certain criteria which is a mandatory. That is ECG has to be checked for patient, and more importantly the pulse oximetry, the oxygen saturation that is happening, and the blood pressure has to be checked constantly, the urine output. So these are the parameters which are occurring at the initial compensatory phenomena, and every single patient undergoing shock treatment has to be evaluated this. And compulsory additional modalities that are to be included are the central venous pressure, which is a invasive. Central venous pressure is nothing but an invasive pressure monitoring where a central line is placed and the catheter is placed into the right atrium and evaluated. And here other invasive blood pressure are also there which are not indicated in present day because of the availability of the cardiac output monitoring by just doing a simple bedside echocardiography to know the functionality of the heart during the shock. And more important nowadays, what any critical care person deals is the base deficit and the serum lactate. This is purely by the ABG techniques, where base deficit that has to be constantly monitored till the patient recovers is the rule of the day. So if a patient base or the deficit or the serum lactate levels are not coming below 6 millimoles, definitely the patient has not had been treated completely from the shock, was not recovered from the shock is what it indicates. A few points I'll be highlighting on the central venous pressure monitoring. It measures the filling pressure of the right ventricle and estimates the increased volume status. Definitely it's the interplay of things between the circulating blood volume, the venous tone and the right ventricular contraction. Whenever we measure a central venous pressure, there are few normal wave patterns that are usually seen. These are 3 upward deflection in the form of A, C and W waves, and 2 downward deflection in the form of X and Y descents. The central venous pressure monitoring is important only if the conditions are in a health patient. In critically ill patient, the assumption whatever them are made, because central venous pressure is constantly fluctuating in a patient who are critically ill. So initially when you check central pressure, the which are measured in the measurements of H2O is sometimes 5 or less than 5 also. When you give a rapid fluid response, the suddenly it raises to 10 centimeters of water. So definitely it is not 100% tool to monitor a patient during the septicemic shock. That's why in health patient it has got reason, it can be used as a reasonable assumption to make a relationship between the CVP and the left atrial pressure. But in critical ill patient, it does not have any role to make any assumption to the treatment. There are certain steps that are involved in the central pressure monitoring, where the patient is put in a 10 lumbar position with head turned to the left side, and the 2 heads of the sternocleidomastoid are identified, and the IGV internal jugular vein is located at the apex of the triangle. Then a guide wire is passed through the needle. definitely. And after that, a guide wire is placed, and the triple lumen venous catheter is inserted and connected with the guide wire, and the guide wire is reversed and CVP catheter is placed. These are the certain things that you supposed to know as a for a central venous pressure monitoring. So definitely, if after central pressure venous monitoring, there is how to monitor the patient's cardiac output. It can be done by simple bedside Doppler ultrasound, which analyzes the pulse waveform of the analysis can be done. There are other methods also to check for the cardiac output, also called as the indicator dilution techniques, but they are not or does not respond or as expected for the first line of therapy, because but it is going to give some evidence in form of a cardiogenic shock or a myocardial dysfunction, that as I told, medical conditions of shock, and also helps to adjust the patient's requirement for the inotropic and vasopressor support. There are certain systemic and organ perfusion methods that are need to be addressed whenever we are treating a patient of shock. When we are treating a patient of shock, we have to know whether the patient is responding to the shock or not. So there are certain parameters or investigations that will help in identifying the conditions or the patient responding to the shock. These are nothing but the base deficit, which I already discussed. The serum lactate levels are measures in the millimoles per liter, and these are the investigation that will tell the global. Important thing is the systemic body, means how the entire system is responding to the shock. The mixed venous oxygen saturation, which again I have told what it should be minimum 70%, but that has to be maintained. If it is less than 60 to 70%, definitely the patient is not responding or the tissue is not getting adequate oxygen supply. And there are other perfusion measurement also, like organ perfusion. You can see that heading, there is an organ perfusion. The organ can be in the form of a muscle perfusion, the gut perfusion, the kidney perfusion, and the brain perfusion. There are different tests available for similarly for the muscle: infrared, near infrared spectroscopy, tissue oxygen electrodes which are placed in the muscle to look for it, and gut is sublingual capnometry, gut mucosal pH monitoring has to be done. In kidney, simple technique is by clinical method of assessing the urine output, which should be at least 0.5 to 1 ml per minute, that has to be checked. And brain, definitely conscious level is what we assess. GCS is the one conscious level that we assess in a patient with the shock. If at all required, invasive technique are the tissue oxygen electrodes and near infrared spectroscopy. The textbook in present day, even till today, says only the systemic perfusion value, perfusion monitoring has got significant value in monitoring a patient to the response to the treatment. Organ perfusion has got limited value because it does not reflect the entire system. So this is a topic which has to be addressed. The pathophysiology is very, very important, and the severity we should understand, and there are different techniques or the investigation how a patient should be monitored for the shock. In the next class, I'll be dealing with individually the hypovolemic shock, what is the pathophysiology that is happening, and briefly I'll be talking about pathophysiology, and definitely in detail about the management, that is for the hypovolemic shock. Then there will be a septic shock, again a separate topic, because these are the topics which has to be dealt in detail. So I'll be taking a separate class for those things. So I hope you have got the brief understanding about the pathophysiology, and also the important thing is about the monitoring of a patient with shock. So I would request if you to kindly subscribe my channel and also like and share, and please press the bell icon for further notification. I'll be putting further topics on this shock. Thank you very much.